Hi everyone, another fun pattern for you today. This is my version of a snake using a 22 needles circular knitting machine. This snake pattern is really addicting. The color combinations are endless. So let me show you how I made these super cute snakes. This is the tube off the machine. Don't worry, I'll share the row counts later. Start with the head portion of the tube. This is the larger section. Turn the head portion inside out and fold it back so the first stripe is showing. You don't need to turn the whole tube inside out. Then fold back the end so that we can sew it to the inside. We're basically making the head portion doubled. So I flipped it around just so it's easier to work with, and I want to align the tail with the color change area. Then cinch the tail a little bit to remove the slack in the stitches. We need to see the stitches, so don't cinch too tight. Thread the tail onto a tapestry needle. Count down 3 rows below the color change row and insert the needle under a purl stitch. 1, 2, 3. So look for the portion of the stitch that looks like a frown. Just go underneath it. Then go to the next stitch on the edge. Be careful not to split the yarn or it will be difficult to cinch later. And then in the next column of stitches above, we're going to go down 3 rows and come up through that purl stitch. And then just repeat this pattern going from the edge to the 3rd row down and go all the way across until you reach the beginning. As you're making your way around, if you are starting to not have enough slack in your tail, you can cinch it up. Just pull on that tail a little bit to cinch it up to give you a little bit more slack. We will cinch this up in the end, but not all the way tightly closed. I am almost finished here, and you can see that the last couple of stitches are a little difficult to find sometimes. So go slow and make sure that you're only picking up the stitch and nothing more than the stitch. No fibers from the drawstring. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to cinch this up. Now that that's done, we're going to cinch the tail. You don't want it super tight. This is going to be the back side of the head, and it should be just tapered. So once you cinch it up, go ahead and secure with a couple of knots and then trim your tail. We don't need to worry about burying this tail because this portion will actually be on the inside. Then go ahead and turn that tube right side out, and you can see how much I've cinched it up. It's not very much. Now flatten out the whole tube. So you want the color change to be right in the middle because this is going to get covered up. Cinch the tail end just a little bit. We just want to remove the slack in those stitches. And then take a long piece of yarn. We're going to seam these edges together. So you want your yarn to be about 1.5 times the length of the tube at this point. Fold your tube in half and we will seam the sides. And I'm going to start with this first stripe here to make sure that everything gets lined up properly. You want 2 columns of stitches opening up to the left, and your first stitch is going to be a yellow stitch with a blue bar and a blue stitch with a blue bar. Go ahead and pull that yarn all the way through. Well, actually, leave about a 10 or 12 inch tail. And then on the other side, what you want to find, is a yellow stitch with a yellow bar and a yellow stitch with a blue bar. These two stitches that we're making are the two main setup stitches. This is what is going to align all of the stripes going forward. So it's important to get these two stitches correct. Now we can pick up 2 bars on the bottom by going through the previous stitch, 2 bars on the top going through the previous stitch, and alternate between the top and the bottom going all the way across. If you have difficulties with the mattress stitch, my tip is to hold the two edges like I am in this video here. I have both column of stitches right there on the top edge, so it's very easy to see the stitches that I need to pick up. And I will readjust my hand position as I work my way down the tube. Every few inches, just pull on the working yarn to remove the slack in the stitches. We just want to make sure we didn't create a knot somewhere, and just making sure that our stripes are lining up properly. You can see that I'm just continuing to seam the two edges together, pulling every so often, and you can see how nicely the stripes are lining up. So continue to do this until you reach the head portion. So I am just about done. I am stopping at the 3rd row past the last stripe. This is the base of the head. This is the same spot where we doubled up. You can see where that seam is, where we cinched it closed. That's where I'm going to stop. The rest is going to become the head. So once I reach that point, I can just cinch up that last part of the seam and then secure with a couple of knots and then bury that tail. And you'll notice that I did not stuff the snake as I went along. I thought it was fine without stuffing. If you wanted to lightly stuff your snake, that is fine. I would do it as you are seaming. It will make it really easy to add your stuffing as you go. With this portion done, we'll flip it around and finish seaming the tip of the tail. You'll just do the same 2 bars on each side until you reach the end. So pull on that tail to remove the slack in those stitches. And then before we secure everything, you want to stretch the seam. This is going to allow the seam to move with the rest of the snake. So once you've done that, you can cinch the end closed all the way, and then I just tie these 2 tails in a knot and bury them. So the tail and the body is now finished, and we can finish up the head portion. So lightly stuff with polyfill about halfway. Snakes don't have big heads, so don't overstuff it. Just as a side note here, I had finished the snake earlier, but I forgot to add the tongue, so I opened it all back up so I can show you how to add the tongue. So you'll notice a little break in the video here, and when I come back, he's going to have eyes on it already. So I cut out a tongue from some felt and I hot glued it on the inside here in the center. Just a little bit hot glue right there. Now we're ready to close up this opening. So notice that the seam here is now visible. This is going to be the bottom side of the head, and I'm just going to pick up one leg of every stitch, going all the way around that top edge, and I'm going to create a drawstring here. Now that I have that drawstring added, I'm going to pull on one end and I'm going to leave a short tail on the other end. And then I'll cinch it closed and tie a knot. Keep the tails long. We are not done using these tails yet. Once that's secure, go ahead and flip your snake over. And I'm working on the top side of the head and I'm pushing that stuffing down about halfway or a little more than halfway. Then I'm going to pinch the end here and we're going to seam about an inch into the nose. So using that long tail, just find a stitch on either side to start. Make sure you don't trap your tongue in this long tail here. So I'm going through one bar on each side and I'm only going to pick up 5 stitches on each side. So the one bar is going to give us a little bit tighter of a seam. So 5 stitches is going to be about an inch from the end of the nose. Since I already had eyes on this sample for you, I just want to mention that you want to make sure you're working on the opposite side of where we seamed the body. So this is the top side and this would be the bottom side. And we're actually seaming on the opposite side of the bottom. So you'll have a seam on the top side and a seam on the bottom. So I'm almost done. I just have one more set of stitches to go through. And just want to make sure I'm not trapping my tongue in there. And on the 6th stitch, what we'll do so I've picked up a 6th stitch here. Now I'm going to pick up 3 stitches inside of the seam. And what that's going to do is kind of even out the inside of that seam with the rest of the seam so it's not such a harsh cutoff. And then I'll pick up that last 6th stitch on the opposite side. And then we can cinch this up. And kind of shape his nose a little bit. I'll weave the tail back through that same column of stitches and out the end of the nose or the mouth. And you can see how it kind of evens out those stitches where that seam is. And now what I'll do is just tie these ends together and bury those tails. Be careful not to trap the tongue. And the last thing you do is add some snake eyes. And this is how the head looks. So I think he turned out super cute, and he's about 36 inches in length. So let's look at the row count. So 9 rows for the tail. Then you're going to do 3 rows of a stripe and 15 rows solid. And you're going to repeat that 7 times. And then end with a 3-row stripe and 35 rows for the head, for a total of 191 rows. If you want to make the coral snake, you need to add 1 more stripe repeat so the colors will alternate between the red and black evenly. You should have a total of 209 rows. Did you know Calumet Knits is on Facebook and Instagram? The links are below in the description. Thanks for watching.